I'm Sophia Cassiola.
And I am Michael J. Epstein.
And you're watching
Without Your Head.
This is Master Neil, the station of decapitation without your head at Buffalo Film's Fantastic Film Festival. It's a very long title, but it is very cool. And I'm here with Brian. How do you say the name now? Avenent?
It's Avenet-Bradley.
Avenent-Bradley, all right. And he's from, I almost said Stir of Echoes. What's the wrong movie? Echoes of Fear.
Yeah, Echoes of Fear.
Which I like the title. Some people mention, or one person mentioned. I don't say some people.
One person. Yeah.
That is kind of a thing, though, on the internet. If one person will tweet something, and then it'll become like people are saying.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, for people who aren't at the film festival, give them an idea of what the movie's about.
Yeah, I mean, we've been trying to keep it under wraps as possible, plot-wise, so people have the thrill of seeing the movie and seeing it unfold. But what I can say is it's basically like a story of the main character, Alyssa. Yeah. Her grandfather dies in the beginning of the movie. It's apparently a heart attack. Mm-hmm. Who knows? And then she goes and inherits this house, and she has to get it ready to clean and sell the house because she can't keep it because of taxes. And basically, it's the occurrences that happened there, and then her and her best friend and their little pet mouse, basically trying to unravel this mystery that there may be more going on to her grandfather's death than immediately was apparent. So it's a supernatural horror movie which goes in unexpected ways and keeps turning the screw, I think.
She's great in it. And also, I think her voice adds a lot to the role because, she has a very distinct voice, and you also, feel a lot for her, so you don't want anything bad to happen to her.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. I mean, that's the whole essence of the movie was you had to be connected to her character, Alyssa, and you had to be with her in her journey and care for her and her friends and see the movie through her eyes. And she just did a fantastic job with the role and really bringing that to the table. Because she has a lot of scenes in the movie where it's just her. Without any dialogue or very little dialogue because she talks to her little mouth. And she has to convey so much with her face. And her face is, I mean, her expressions are amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's like you mentioned her voice, but what she does with her face is truly, when I was editing it, I would look at the different takes, and it was like almost watching someone play a musical instrument with the face. It was amazing what she could convey.
Had you worked with her before? Or?
I worked with her before in our previous film, Malignant, with Gary Carnes as the lead and Brad Dourif as the villain in that. And we cast her. It was a small role, very memorable, but very small role in the movie. And just when we were auditioning her, I even knew when I was auditioning her that not only I wanted to cast her for that role, I was like, wow, I wish I had a bigger role in that movie for her. Mm-hmm. So when we set out to write the script, I had her in mind. Mm-hmm. She still had to audition. I didn't want to tell her I wrote it for her. Right. She knows now. But at the time, I didn't tell her I wrote it for her. But I wrote it for her with her in mind and then auditioned extensively with her. And my instincts were right that she would be able to do this role fantastic.
Has that ever happened reverse? So you write something for somebody and then they don't deliver the way you envisioned it?
I think it happens all the time because it's such a long process that when you're writing something, maybe that person you had a connection with, maybe they move somewhere else or they get involved in another movie at the same time you have to shoot. So they don't end up being the person in the script that you wrote it for. Mm-hmm. So that can kind of happen. But in a way, it's still useful, I think, to have something in mind as you're writing it. And of course, once whoever becomes that role, I think it's really important that you see what the actor brings to the table and reshape the role if necessary to fit that. You shouldn't try to make them be someone else, unless it works, unless it fits.
Yeah. Now last night it was we watched it here, but it's already been at a lot of festivals.
Yes, started last October. Shriekfest was the premiere, immediately followed by the East Coast premiere at Women in Horror. It was the same weekend. It just happened to work out. So we premiered it and flew out red eye. Friday night, flew out red eye to Women in Horror in Peachtree City in Georgia, and then screened it, and then they did an award ceremony early, and we won Best Feature there. Oh, awesome. And then we flew back to finish up Shriekfest, the other movies in the award ceremony. We won Best Supernatural Feature at Shriekfest. Awesome. So it's kind of funny. Day, So it's actually, I got the award in my hands for the second screening first, even though the first award technically screened. So it's kind of an interesting pairing. Yeah. But it was an amazing weekend. I don't think that'll ever happen again.
Now, I know it's your fifth movie, but Is it so nervous the first time you watch your movie with an audience?
Oh, it's always nervous. I mean, that's the thing is we just finished the movie that September. So when we played those 2 festivals early October, I mean, I'd shown it earlier to a very small group of people when we were working on the different editing and the versions of it. But that was the first time we had a big audience to see the movie. So that really was the unveiling of the movie. So believe me, I was in the back of the audience on both those, like watching everyone's reactions. And, you know, and you could tell afterwards from watching the reactions during the movie and also the reactions afterwards at the Q&A and them coming up to you afterwards. And you would realize like, oh my God, it worked. Well, what we intended actually worked, and the people were really passionate about it.
I heard in the Q&A you do your own editing.
Yes, I do. I use my Brian Sandage name for that, which is my middle name, my mother's maiden name. I also use that professionally when I professionally edit for other people, and it's just because it just feels weird to do like written, directed, and edited. It's just kind of, I don't know. It just feels like, look at me. So I just like put it in the credits, and if people understand, it's me great. But you know, if not, I'm not worried about it.
I always wonder about that though, because to me it's like 2 different ways. If someone else edits your stuff, I would think like it's in someone else's hands, so it's weird. But at the same time, if you edit your own stuff, do you ever get like attached to stuff that you like have a memory of filming, and maybe not right actually for the actual movie, but just your memory kind of overrides that? I
think it's a really good question. I think the real key is if you edit your own work. I mean, I professionally edit, so I know how to edit. But if you're going to edit your own work, since you don't have that fresh eye perspective, you have to basically like edit it as you intended the first pass. Call that the assembly or rough cut, whatever you want to call it, the first pass as you originally intended, and then you kind of have to let the movie show you what it wants to be, and you kind of have to divorce yourself from what you did on the set and what you did as a writer too, and as a director, and kind of see how the film wants to play and let it shape, get some good reactions from people you trust, and let it be what it wants to become. And you can't hold on to things. I mean, things you might really love. Oh, I love this shot, or I love this scene, or I love this actor's line. It's like you have to let that go and let the movie become what it wants to be. So I usually because I edit it myself, I usually take a longer time in post, because I always make sure I can get it to a cut, step away a little bit, get it to another cut, step away, let it kind of get a fresh perspective on it again. I think it would be much quicker and easier if I was editing someone else's like I do at work, if I'm editing someone else's thing, because you have the fresh eyes right off the bat. So I think that's the key. If you're going to edit your own stuff, number one, you have to know how to edit. But then number two, you have to not fall in love with what you wrote or what you did on the set. You have to let the movie become what it wants to be.
Do you think being an editor, besides your own stuff, helps with that, knowing how the movie... for sure. I think editing professionally on the television shows and stuff, I think that helps me tremendously in terms, because I'm all the time cutting things down. That's what you're always doing, especially for television and running time. You're always cutting down how tight you can make it. And that was my goal with the movie, was after the first, we cut from the first cut of it. There must be at least 12 good, after even the first solid cut of the movie, there must be at least 12 minutes I removed. Because I kept wanting to see like how much I could take out and still have the right flow and pacing. And then I had some trusted filmmakers who did know the script and let them see a very rough cut of it without the sound and music to get feedback about story elements. And some of the things I learned was some of the things I thought I could get away with cutting, people were missing things. I went, okay, I need to put that back in. Because even though that same information is covered here, I really need to have it repeated here in this little moment, and that way people can follow it. So that was also helpful, because you can go too far. You can go too far with cutting it down. So it's a balance. Did you know, going in, how long you wanted the movie, or does that really...
Well, yeah, it's important to me, because, for an indie horror movie, or really any indie movie, if you're not doing an epic movie, I just don't feel like there's any reason for it to be longer than 90 minutes. I just don't feel like there's a reason for a film to be longer than 90 minutes. And if you can get it shorter than that, and get 82, 85, whatever, and still get everything the way you want to tell it, and the flow and the pacing work right, that's great too. But I knew I didn't want it to go over 90. I just think people's patience and you know.
So this is your 5th movie, and they're all horror movies.
Yes.
So I assume you're always a horror movie fan?
I've always been a horror movie fan. Ever since I was a kid. I started out making movies as a kid. The first one I did was my dad was an optical engineer at Magnavox. He had one of those crazy old video cameras with a separate recorder unit. I don't know if you even know what I'm talking about. But the first thing I did when I was 10 years old, was House of Frankenstein, which I know that
nice.
title's taken, but I had a script I had gotten, the Little House of Frankenstein. So I did my own House of Frankenstein with my friends on VHS, and I was Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Oh, very
nice.
fitting
for a director. Very fitting for a director, probably. But that was my first thing. But I've always been into horror and love watching horror movies and making them, and everything I do or write always seems to have an element of horror. If horror would not be considered the main genre, it's always like a prominent subgenre. Yeah. Basically that really, really dark comedy, which always seems to involve a lot of horror elements.
Yeah.
And I'm also into science fiction, but the science fiction I'm into is also involves horror elements.
Yeah.
So it always seems like horror is what it always comes back to.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned the House of Frankenstein. So what were your favorite horror movies?
Oh, well, see, it's funny because, I mean, I think with horror movies, maybe it's like with music too, is like whatever you grow up with forms a special connection with you. Like the first things that you see and you react to kind of form extra plants. So my parents weren't into me watching horror movies, but I had a best friend, still a good friend, did sound design on the movie, Mark Lee Fletcher, and he would basically bootleg and smuggle like VHS tapes, and we'd watch it late at night. Yeah. So in a weird way, like watching bad VHS of like movies in the 80s gives it like an extra veneer.
I agree. Yeah, I
and the Forbidden, but Evil Dead.
It was hard to get.
It was like, so Evil Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, very dead. But early Wes Craven, Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street. Definitely early Romero, early John Carpenter. I mean, all those movies were like major influences. And it's so funny is like talking about the VHS. Is that when I first saw Evil Dead, because the quality was so bad, my mind filled in things. I thought it was much more visually horrific than it was. When I finally saw a pristine print of it, like on DVD, and saw it, it was like, oh, a lot of the stuff I thought I was seeing was like, I was like seeing things in the VHS blacks that weren't there.
Yeah, there's that one in particular I remember because it was hard to get, and then I was at my brother's 9 years older, and I was at a party. He took me to a party with other, they were teenagers. I was like 8 or something. And it was this really bad copy of it. It always just seemed like dangerous to watch it.
Yeah, I know. There's a certain fun. I mean, digital era is great, and you got to keep up with the times. But I definitely think there's something I don't know, nostalgic. Well, that's why vinyl came back. I think. It was a little bit of that nostalgia factor.
I love to go to midnight movies in Boston, and they show the 35 millimeter print.
Oh yeah,
and awesome. Some of the movies, when they do restore them, like they look and stuff, but some of them they take away, I think, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's weird seeing like a degraded Texas Chainsaw Massacre 35 millimeter print might be the best way.
I agree, because the movie itself seems kind of dirty, like you're not supposed to be watching it.
Yeah, I missed that on my list, but definitely that was one, the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah. And because of my black comedy angle, I also thought that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 was also a surreal masterpiece. A lot of people don't like it because if it's not a straight up copy.
I still think the first movie is pretty funny. I don't know if that's just because I'm crazy, but
no, I think it does have a very, very
not as
dark humor.
As the second one.
But he pulled it out a lot more in the second one. I love them both.
I do too.
The first two, for exactly different reasons. Just like Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2.
Yeah,
totally different movies.
It's a very similar idea. It's
and I love both
a remake of the first one, but a more comedic take on it. Yeah. So I like both those. So your wife was a co-director on this? Yes. We've been doing movies together since 1999, our first feature. Oh, wow. And we've always done it as a team, but this is the first one where we've officially co-directed. Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, the lines have always blurred between what we do on the set because it's such a communal thing because we're so small and it's indie. But this one, she just was doing so much of what people would consider the directing part of directing. It was way beyond being a director of photography that she had to have that credit because it just would not give her due if she didn't have it. Is she also big into horror movies? I think she became bigger into horror movies after she got with me. But what she's always been very big into, because she started as a still photographer, is she's always been very into like natural lighting and very high contrast brights and darks and what's in the darkness. And, she started out shooting 35 millimeter film and in darkroom and printing and making those prints. And I think visually, so much of the mood, regardless of stripping the genre out, so much of that mood comes from, I think, that background. There is some of that in Echoes of Fear, the contrast with whites and dark.
Oh yeah, it's very much her style, is really trying to make it seem very naturalistic in terms of like the lanterns are really lighting and the flashlights are really lighting the scene and making it feel like that.
Yeah.
But also like really getting on all the other scenes as well, like a very high contrast lights and blacks, and the blacks being black. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's like what you can't see in the dark is the first primal fear we have, I think, as kids. Yeah. What's under the bed in the closet? Mm-hmm. It's like what's there that you can't see that could be hiding there, and especially when that light goes off, what's there in that darkness that you can't see. So I feel like very important, at least in the films that we do, I feel like it's very important in a scary, atmospheric, creepy, moody horror film that you need to have that blackness. So you're always wondering what's going to come around the corner and what's going to come out of the blackness.
Yeah. Along those lines, and when you're making a horror movie because it's visual, is it hard to know like how much to show then? Because you do want to keep the blackness and you do want to keep like some imagination of what's there, but at the same time you have to show something.
Well, I think the only reason it's difficult is unfortunately we live in a day and age where people don't calibrate their TV sets, or maybe they're even going to watch it on a laptop. Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny. It's like video games, because my wife's an avid survival horror video game fanatic. She loves survival horror video games, Resident Evil, Silent Hill. Yeah. She loves these movies, Dead Space. And all those movies, they have a little slider bar in the beginning to adjust the brightness of your TV set so you have the right level of black.
Yeah, I mentioned that. Okay. But the last time I've done that on the
movies,
TV.
Movies don't have this. I'm like, horror movies don't have this. It's like, wait, it isn't a horror movie. You have a little sliding bar so everyone can get their TV set right. So because you know that doesn't exist, you have to be a little bit careful when you do the grade of the movie and the color timing. Yeah. I always test it on a few different devices. Just to make sure it's like that thing that's barely supposed to be visible, you got to be careful with, because it's got to barely be visible across multiple formats and devices. And that's what's challenging. That's the reason it's challenging, I think. Yeah. And the same with audio. Most people don't have their audio set up right. So it's also challenging with how far you can push the audio versus what you want to do, but at the same time making sure that you're conservative enough that if someone doesn't have it set up right and someone's watching the 5-1 mix out of 2 speakers, they're at least still going to be able to understand the movie. Yeah. And it's a challenge. It'd be much better if you knew everyone was listening to it and watching it on it set right. I think you could be a lot more aggressive.
That's interesting, because I know a lot of people say, their movies are made to see on the big screen.
Right.
But, we just don't live in that world anymore.
Well, we made it to see on the big screen, but we just put a little safety caveat on it. So
it can be seen somewhere else.
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that it couldn't only be seen on the big screen. Right. I mean, our goal is for it to see on the big screen. That's why we did a year of festivals starting last October. Yeah. Still continuing in the U.S. in September, and it'll be going overseas for the next 3 or 4 months. But then also when we're doing, now that we're doing the domestic release, Artist Rights Distribution, who's doing the theatrical and the VOD rights of the movie for North America, it was very important for us to have a theatrical component of that. So we're actually going to come out in October, screening in some it'd be very limited release, but screening in some theaters so people can still have that experience, even if they weren't in a town where the festival was, of seeing it with a group of people in the screams and scares in the dark. Yeah. And we're working on setting that up also with tugg.com, setting it up so people can actually bring it to their town as well.
I love that idea. That's the first time I've heard of it. And then I looked it up, and I think it's a really cool idea.
I think if I was a kid and there was something like that was around, that I could bring a horror movie into my town that it wouldn't play because we're not, Atlanta or New York or LA or a big market, to be able to bring it to your smaller town. I think it's just a great way to make, it's like an event. It's like bringing movies back into being an event, not just playing in the theater. Yeah. It's an event. It's one night. So come out this one night, all your friends, family, people in the community loves horror. That's part of the reason of the
festivals. It's like a communal aspect of watching, these movies with a group of people who are interested in the same stuff you are.
So it's a way of like doing that, but being in the smaller towns that maybe can't even support, can't even support a festival.
Yeah. How important are festivals?
For me, they're just really important because I want to share it it's made for people to see. And it's made for people who like a good, scary horror movie. And I want people to be able to see it in the best way possible, which is always going to be in a theater setting with a group of people. Yeah. It's like a comedy. Comedy's always funnier when you can see it in a big theater and everyone's laughing together. Agreed. Well, when you're screaming in the dark, it's a communal. It's a communal catharsis, and that's why it's really important to me for that reason. And which is why we want to do the additional screenings in October outside of the festivals. People see it that way.
Yeah. Well, speaking of October, do you do anything special for Halloween?
I always do everything I can in Halloween. It's funny. It's like since been doing the movie so intently for the last 3 years that I feel like I'm never getting to do what I really like to do. But of course, I love to go to fun Halloween parties that my friends have that are dark. Mm-hmm. I mean, not the kiddie Halloween, the dark.
Yeah, I got you.
The dark Halloween. I really love. I love seeing horror movies. Yeah. Both the re-releases and also the new ones, like going to the horror festivals that happen in October. There's quite a few in LA. Yeah, in LA, there's quite a few. It's like everyone always thinks, hey, let's do a horror festival. Let's set it in October. It's like, well, that's great. But in some way, it becomes almost like a glut. Yeah, because there's so many. But yeah, there's so many. I love seeing new horror movies from other filmmakers that aren't out yet. Mm-hmm. It's fun.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then, of course, revisiting the classics. It's always fun, too.
Yeah. Mutual friend Michael Epstein, since he moved to L.A.
Yes, Michael.
I'll follow him on Facebook, and he's always going, and I get kind of jealous. I'm like, man, every night they have
I get jealous because I've been so busy. I haven't seen so much in the theater. Yeah. Like my friend Mark I was talking about, he was like, so you've seen any good movies lately? He's like, no, because I've just been working on this movie. I have a laundry list of movies like, I'm going to see this. And then sure enough, something comes up. I have to finish a deliverable. I have to give a new poster out. There's always something that I'm having to do with my free time. But it's all right. It's going to get released to the world, and then I can, then I'll be marketing it, though. Then I'll be promoting it.
Yeah. So this is a ghost movie.
Yes.
And there's been a lot of them in the last few years, but it's definitely different. So when you're putting it together, is that in your mind, like, obviously I want to make this different. I want to make the same ghost movie that's already out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I always try to draw from real life as opposed to other movies, because I just feel like the best way to do something different is to put your own personality into it and your own experiences and what scares you, and draw that from real life or other real stories that are outside of movies, but like real stories you read or hear about or hear from friends. I just feel like that's a good way of like bringing something new to the table, as opposed to just strictly copying something. So we always try to do be original with what we do, just by the nature of what gets us interested in making the movie. It just kind of happens naturally. But like I said in the Q&A, a lot of the inspiration, especially in the first act, were all these events that really happened in this house.
Yeah, which is crazy when I heard you talking about that.
Yeah, so I was basically writing these down, even going back before our previous film, Malignant. Even going back before that, I was writing all these things down, but I didn't know what they meant. But I had like a great list of really spooky, creepy things that really happened, including the dark shape and all that stuff. And I like had that, and then it was like mainly figuring out what the rest of the story was. And then without giving anything away, I came across 2 other true stories. One of them actually deals with the area where the house is, and another one is a different area. And I basically took the true events in the house with those other 2 true stories and basically worked on synthesizing all that into one script. And once I did that, it just naturally happened. It became different and unique just naturally. I didn't have to work on it. What I had to work on was make sure that all the threads were in the script and everything was set up and paid off and everything flowed through. So as things change in the movie, it feels like a very organic change. Yeah. It feels like a natural change. It's more like, oh, but of course, duh, oh yeah, as opposed to like, what? Which is what I think, a twist, as they call them. I think when a twist doesn't work, it's the twist happens and you go, what? Yeah. And the twist at work is the twist that happens and you go, oh, of course, that's what, and those are the ones that work. Yeah.
And something I always like in these kind of movies, well, sometimes I don't like it, really can make the movie work or not, is when other people like come to the conclusion there is something supernatural or not. Because I think sometimes if people don't ever think there's something else going on, it can be unbelievable. Because if you see so many different things, eventually at some point you're going to have to think, well, there's something supernatural here. Right. And I like that her friend, is into it. She's like, oh, I think there is a ghost here. And,
right. Well, that was like really important was her character. Sorry.
No problem.
Steph, played by Hannah Race. It was really important that her friend character basically was one of the people that she could talk to and kind of impart that information that you usually have with a more stereotypical character, which is like the wise old woman or the mystic or the ghost hunter person. Yeah. And so we basically just wanted to it's very real in LA. There are, call them new agey, whatever you want to call them. I guess I can almost fall into this. But there's a lot of belief in the spiritual and ghosts, in feeling energy and vibes and what that means and stuff. So even with my friends, we talk about this kind of stuff. Yeah. So to have a character that's in tune to that and is talking about it was very natural for her without her falling into the cliche,
and stereotype. You don't have to waste time like in the movie her explaining all this stuff.
Oh yeah, you don't have to waste time. You don't have to waste the time.
Whatever.
Like I'm going to find a blah blah person. Then they come in. And there's a scene where they walk through the house. And yeah. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah,
I didn't want to do that trope. Yeah.
So where does it go from here?
Well, where it goes from here is we're playing the Unnamed Film Festival in Philadelphia next month. I don't think I can announce it yet, but there's like 3 or 4 festivals overseas that we'll be playing in the next 2 or 3 months as well. There'll be about 14 festivals total starting from last October. But the exciting thing is in North America, because overseas we have Jenga in the UK as our sales agent. They played at the Cannes Film Market, playing to the buyers there. So sales have been started on that with them. And with North America, it's coming out in theaters in October, as many cities as we can hit and have it come out to, where there's an interest in seeing the movie. And then in November will be the VOD. And then Film Swarm, which is the part of Horror Pack, which expands the movies with people who don't have to have the subscription. They'll be putting out the movie on DVD and Blu-ray also in November. So basically people will be able to see the movie any way they want. They can see it in a theater. If they're the type of person who wants to get it on VOD and stream it, or if they want to have the physical copy on Blu-ray, they can do that too. So we want people to be able to get the movie the way they want to get it.
There's a lot of talk about people that they say people don't want physical copies.
I like physical copies.
I have a bunch at home, and it seems like people I know online. Do you think it's more so horror fans do like physical copies?
Well, I think it's cool to have. I mean, number one, it's almost like getting vinyl in the sense that you can get artwork big. So you've got your artwork.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
And the other big part of it is you get the best quality with the Blu-ray and the extras. Yeah. And we did something very unique on this. We didn't want to do a talking head extra. So what we did on the extra was we actually went and did an original documentary called Echoes in the Dark.
Oh, nice.
With a lot of the people in the movie, including the 2 lead actresses and the musician and a lot of the other people and the special effects makeup artists. We brought them back to the haunted location where we shot the movie, and we did it at night. And
also known as your house.
Yeah, we did it at night with the all-in-night vision.
Oh, nice.
So we broke it up into chapters, but I didn't know how long it was going to be, and I was like really surprised when we put it all together. It's 55 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And it's a really entertaining 55 minutes in it. And there were some things that actually happened that night, which I did not think would happen because things had kind of cleared up in the house. Yeah, and I don't know about talking about it, but we had, which I included as a chapter. I included the whole event in there, uncut. I put the whole event in there.
Whatever's there, maybe they were like,
because I'm like, okay,
a little something. So
if this is going to happen while we're shooting it, I'm putting it in. But we also tell the stories, the true stories that inspired the movie and the events that actually happened in the house, and took them back in those crawl spaces and everything else. So it's very different fun, and that'll be on the Blu-ray. So that's another reason, if you have the Blu-ray, you get, a 55-minute extra content.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there
cool.
A commentary track too? Or?
I don't know a commentary track, just because I don't.
We have the documentary, so that's pretty cool.
I felt like I said what we wanted to say, and you can hear from the other people and the voices from the Echoes in the Dark documentary. And the only reason I don't like commentary tracks is it always feels to me, I mean, as a filmmaker, not other people's commentary track, but for me, it just feels weird. It's either like very technical, or it's very like, look how great I am. Look at this amazing scene we did. Oh, you were so great in that scene. Oh, weren't you great? And I don't know, for me, it's like I want the movie to stand for what it is, so people can get it from the movie and how, I don't want to tell people how they should feel in a scene or how they should, what the purpose of the scene. I want people to be able to make their own decisions on that. So I don't know. It's kind of like books. It's like you don't read a book and have like the author's commentary on every page of the book. Well, in this paragraph, what I'm trying to do is, I mean, wouldn't that be weird?
It would be weird.
I mean, to me, that's how I feel about it.
I'm gonna do that.
I'm probably an outlier there, but.
I like them, but this is kind of a dumb thing to say, but I like good ones, which is kind of like should be for anything, I guess. I like good ones, but when they're really good at work, then I really like them. But there are a lot of ones that aren't particularly good.
I think
don't add anything.
I think the best one we did, the last one we did, was for our third film, Dark Remains, because people were very insistent upon it back then, and we did one for that. Which was pretty elaborate. I haven't heard it in a long time though. I probably would cringe because I'd be hearing my voice, talking.
Yeah, that's why it's hard.
But definitely, the Echoes in the Dark will tell everyone everything they need anyway. Yeah, in a much more fun way than just rewatching the movie and hearing talking over it. It's much more fun.
Yeah. So how do you follow yourself? Not like at your house, not at the haunted house, but how do you follow yourself online and the movie online?
Okay, well, yeah, there's a Facebook page. If you just type in Echoes of Fear, the Facebook page, you'll find it easy. We're the only two Avenet-Bradleys on the planet. So my wife and myself are easy to find. If you type in Avenet-Bradley, you're going to find us. Because we have an original title, it's just echoesoffear.com. That's it. And the website will come up. And between all that, you'll be able to get all the information you need.
Cool. I really like the movie, and not just because you're here. I really like the movie, and it made me want to go watch your other stuff.
Oh, cool! That's the highest compliment. Yeah. That's great.
That's very cool. It's good to talk to you.
Cool. It was a great experience. Thank you. So check out the movie. Go have it in your town.